Today we delve into the changing landscape of the automotive industry. So far, no flying cars or trucks being designed, but much is happening in carland. You can drive a techno-pink Spark, Chevrolet's smallest vehicle, a 5-door hatchback with a green tinge, or focus on a Ford product, which is what CEO Dianne Craig would like you to do. Stay with us to meet the New York-born president and CEO of Ford Motor Company Canada. She has a pretty good handle on what smart transportation will look like in the next 10 years. Expect fold-up running boards on your pickup, talking trucks, and hands-free lift gates. Stay with us. It is my pleasure to be here with you today and with Ford Canada's CEO, Dianne Craig. She was born in Buffalo, New York. She is a graduate of the State University of New York, and she has an MBA from Ohio State. After all that schooling, a couple of years ago, she worked her way out of car sales and marketing to become the CEO of Ford Motor Company Canada. She left the good old USA for this big, wide, snowy nation where monster trucks are an easy sell. Or are they?
They are, in fact, and thank you for having me, Fanny. I'm just delighted to be here. Last year, we sold over 100,000 F-Series. It's the first time ever that we've had a single truck nameplate sell over 100,000. Best-selling truck for the last 47 years and best-selling vehicle in Canada is the F-Series.
Really?
Yes.
Is Ford still on top? Ford, Mercury, Lincoln?
Very proud, Ford Lincoln, to be the #1 brand for the last 3 years.
Now, where's the Mercury in that?
Well, the Mercury, we terminated Mercury about 10 years ago, actually.
You see, I never know who owns whom. Yes. Because once Ford had Volvo, didn't they?
We did. And
you did?
In 2006, when Alan Mulally, who's our new CEO, came to Ford, we had a house of brands. We had Volvo, we had an interest in Mazda, we had Aston Martin, we had Jaguar, we had Land Rover, we had Ford, Lincoln, and Mercury. In the U.S., we had Mercury still. And so he came and he said, look, and of course the industry hadn't even begun to go through a lot of turmoil, but it was a tough time at Ford, and we had divested of all those brands, and today we only have Ford Lincoln, and that is our focus. So, and you know, we've seen a lot of change in the industry over the last 5 years, and industry went through some unprecedented times, and we've been really proud of the fact that we worked our plan. We did it without having to take precious taxpayer money, and we've been the market leader here in Canada for the last 3 years.
Well, dare I mention bailouts? Dare I? But over that hump, the industry, right? Pretty much?
Yes. In fact, 2012 was the first year we finally saw some stability in the industry. We expected marginal growth. It turned out to be up 6% year over year and was almost a record industry in Canada. So in 2013, we are actually anticipating a record car industry, automotive industry in Canada, which is fantastic.
And when you sit in one of those meetings, the research and development meetings, the concept car meeting, where Ford should go or Lincoln should go, where should they go? Greener, we know that.
Well, it's a great question, because part of our success in working our plan is having a laser focus on what the customer wants and what they value. Now, part of that's anticipating what you think is going to be the next brightest thing, 5 to 10 years. To your point about will we ever see flying cars, right, in our future, right? But we know a few things. One, quality is the price of entry. Have to have that, right? So everything we build has to be the best quality. Fuel economy is the #1 purchase consideration that consumers have today. So whether it's a gas engine that gets really good fuel economy, or to your point about green, we've got, you know, here at the show, we're super excited to be here in Vancouver, and we have this Eco Drive where you can drive an electric Focus. We have a C-Max, which is a small, compact CUV that you can get in a plug-in hybrid or a hybrid. Our new Fusion, beautiful new sedan. You can get 2 gas engines. You can get a hybrid, a plug-in hybrid, only mid-size sedan to offer 5 different powertrains. So this is all to give customers a power of choice of what they want.
And beautiful British Columbia has renewed the $5,000 rebate for the clean energy vehicle.
Yes, Minister
Which is
Lake
good news.
was wonderful this morning. He made the announcement. So for consumers that want to buy one of these vehicles, electric vehicle, you get a $5,000 incentive. Plug-in hybrids, I believe it's $2,500. But also a rebate if you want to put a charging station in your home that the government will give you. And they're working on putting more infrastructure out there to have public charging stations, which is a really important part of these technologies.
In British Columbia, as you know, we have a lot of water. So we have a lot of power. There are places that don't have that much power, or they struggle to make the power grid. Where are we going to plug all these things in? In our garage, yes, but where's it all coming from?
Well, and I think that's part of the challenge, and that's the commitment that the provincial government has made, that we know we have to put the infrastructure in. Like for the battery electric Focus we have, the range is 160 kilometers. So if you're here and you live in Vancouver, that's going to be fine for charging, whether or not at your office or at home, right? But the public infrastructure is really, really important. But even the hybrid plug-ins, in the hybrids, there's a 1,200 kilometer range. So it's a good amount of range.
Now, I've talked to some police officers, and they have new rules when hybrids get in accidents. Apparently there's more dangerous chemicals, something. They have to be careful about how they rescue people. It's a changing landscape. Yay, nay?
You know, I haven't really heard that in terms of, you know, the police and having to worry too much about that. I mean, clearly it's a different technology, but it's you know, at this point, that's really not a concern that we see. There's no safety issues with hybrids or plug-in hybrids or electric vehicles.
And speaking of safety, if you had a teenage daughter, do you yet?
I have a 13-year-old, soon to be 14 next week.
So one day, and we always think about that entry car.
Yes, we do.
What would I buy my kid so my kid would be safe? My father always said if I could afford it, I'd buy you a diesel Mercedes. Because if it gets hit, it's probably still going to stay together.
Well, it's funny you ask that, because I think about it already today, and what would I put her in, and I can't even imagine the day she gets her driver's license and she drives off, right? One thing I know for sure, she will be in a Ford or a Lincoln. That is
pretty
a safe
much,
bet.
Unless you get fired.
Well, let's hope that doesn't happen. But the most important thing that I feel confident, and I know I'm obviously a little biased because I work for Ford, but safety is, you know, we have what's called our Ford pillars. It's quality, it's fuel economy, it's safety, and it's technology. And of course, it's got to be good looking, fun to drive, especially for, you know, a teenager, right? But safety is absolutely paramount. Absolutely paramount. So whether or not it's the technology in the cars, I mean, we have this new technology where it's a lane keeping aid that if you happen to veer off into the lane, it'll go beep, 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 push you back into the lane, right? All kinds of cool technologies to give you warnings.
Do you worry in the safety area that if the car talks to us too much or beeps too much or any of that, that we don't pay close enough attention? You know what I mean? You say, don't worry, the car will park itself.
No, I know exactly what you mean, because driver distraction is something we're really mindful of. So you got to be really careful with the technology that we're adding, that it's really going to do everything to keep your eyes on the road and your hands on the steering wheel. So we have what's called My Ford Touch and My Lincoln Touch. So literally you can activate everything by just a voice command, right? Because the last thing we want any of these kids doing, or even grown-ups, right? I mean, the good thing is my daughter always says, you know, she'll ask me, are you driving? So you better not be texting when you're sending me that. And I mean, even grown-ups are probably the chief offenders, right? So it's really important that we drive technologies that will add value and absolutely keep people safe, right?
And what is the fender made of in 10 years? Or what is the bumper made of in 10 years? Steel?
Well, you know,
plastic?
There's all kinds of technology that's under development, some that you'll see probably sooner than later. Obviously, steel's been, you know, a big primary piece of the outer sheet metal of the vehicles, but, you know, aluminum is something, it's lightweight, yes, and you'd think, ooh, aluminum,
like
is that going to be as
can?
sturdy? There's magnesium that might go into these vehicles, but at the end of the day, what's being tested will ultimately allow the vehicle to be lighter in weight, which will save you in fuel economy, but most important, it's stronger than steel, which, you know, you wouldn't think of that intuitively. You wouldn't think of that, but it is. It's amazing.
I know, because I can crush a pop can. That's aluminum, right?
Exactly. I've seen actually these. I was just over at one of the universities here in Canada, and I saw under research and development 3 different pieces of, you know, these versions, one steel, one aluminum, one with some magnesium in it. It was fascinating how strong it was.
I'm sure. I borrowed my boyfriend's Corvette once and backed it into a wall. And it must have been asbestos or plastic or something, just a chunk fell off, and you say, whoops, that's not, how am I going to pound that dent out?
Yes, that's
You're not. When you market a Ford or you market a Lincoln, what are the tricks? Because we grew up with the fact, or maybe the myth, that when I get rich, I'm going to buy a Lincoln Continental. And, you know, the maid can drive the Ford. So.
Well, going to market is changing so much. Not only the messaging, but where you market to these consumers, especially younger people. You know, or even older people like myself. When I go home, I watch my shows on TV, and I go right through the commercials, right, with my DVR. And so how do you get to these folks, especially in the age of social media,
exactly,
right, and what's happening? So there's the messaging on how do you resonate with that customer base, which comes down to the creative elements, and you know, everybody has opinions about what's great, what's not great, right? But at the end of the day, there's the messaging, but more importantly, how do you reach out to those customers, I think, is the greatest challenge that we have today. So social media is a big play at Ford today.
And then you have to determine who your market is, obviously, the demographic, the psychographic, how you market to the female and how you market to the male, or is it the same marketing?
No, it's different. It's definitely very different. In some cases, you know, it may be the same. I mean, I have someone that I work with that, you know, she loves the rough, tough commercials when it comes to our trucks, which wouldn't necessarily be appealing to me. So again, it sometimes comes down to your own personal taste about what you like and what you don't. But to your point about the luxury market, what's really interesting, especially as we went through this last tough times, recession, the economic downturn, not so much in Canada as we saw in the U.S., but luxury buyers aren't so interested in having, you know, the most expensive vehicle out there. It's more about the quality of the vehicle, the personalized experience. So that's the niche that we're looking to take Lincoln into.
The color of the dashboard.
Yeah.
I know I'm a female, but I always ask about the color. I don't drive gold cars, just don't. Don't care if it's free. Don't like green cars, like black cars. Of course I do. Is that more a female thing, a male thing, or does it matter?
The number one color, and I have to check this out in Canada, but the last I checked is white, actually, silver than black.
White, silver, black, and white because you can see it better?
I don't know, but it's for years it's been like that. And so, you know, I mean, and we have beautiful black paints that just sparkle. So, but that's at least what we see consumers buying. But there's all kinds of crazy colors, especially with young people. You look at our cars with Fiesta, you know, in our Focus, we have, you know, the lime green and this really, really light blue color. And, you know, young people especially love those colors.
Who knew? How did you get into the business of the car business?
Well, graduated and I needed a job.
You see?
So Ford was hiring and here I am. It wasn't anything that said when I woke up I wanted to work for the car business, but it's been so much fun. It's such a fun industry.
And your first car was?
My first car was a Ford Focus.
It was?
Yes. Buffalo, New York. No air, stick. And then I got transferred to Memphis, Tennessee in the middle of the summer. A little warm.
A little
Got
warm.
rid of the Focus.
I see.
Non-air car.
Well, I had an old Dodge, 49 Dodge. We'll talk about that. I will return with Dianne Craig, the CEO of Ford Motor Company, Canada.